Imagine you're sitting on a commercial airliner, 35,000 feet above the South China Sea. The cabin lights are dimmed. Most passengers are asleep. A few people are watching movies, while others quietly read or look out into the darkness. The flight is smooth. The weather is perfect. Nothing seems unusual. Then, without warning, the airplane disappears. Not from the sky, from the world's tracking systems. No distress call, no emergency signal, no warning to air traffic control. One moment, the aircraft is following its planned route toward Beijing. The next, it has become one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. How can a Boeing 777, one of the safest and most technologically advanced passenger aircraft ever built, simply vanish? More importantly, what really happened to the 239 people on board? More than a decade has passed since Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared. Yet investigators still don't have a definitive answer. Billions of dollars have been spent. Ships have searched one of the most remote oceans on Earth. Aircraft have flown countless missions. Autonomous underwater vehicles have mapped the seafloor. Satellite engineers have reconstructed the plane's final journey using signals never intended for navigation. And despite all of that, the main wreckage has never been found. This isn't just the story of a missing airplane. It's a story of unanswered questions, unexpected clues, and one mystery that continues to challenge aviation experts around the world. Tonight, we'll retrace Flight MH370's final journey, from its routine departure in Kuala Lumpur to the strange series of events that unfolded over the following hours. We'll examine what investigators know for certain, what remains uncertain, and the leading theories that attempt to explain one of the most baffling disappearances in modern history. This is the story of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Chapter 1. A Flight Like Any Other. March 8, 2014, just after midnight, Kuala Lumpur International Airport is operating like any other busy international hub. Ground crews move between aircraft. Baggage handlers finish loading luggage into cargo holds. Fuel trucks complete their final checks. Inside the terminal, passengers line up at the boarding gate for Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a scheduled overnight flight to Beijing, China. For the people waiting to board, it's simply another international journey. Among the passengers are business executives preparing for meetings, families traveling together, students returning home, tourists, and airline employees commuting for work. In total, 227 passengers, representing more than a dozen nationalities, are on board. They are joined by a crew of 12, led by Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, an experienced pilot with over 18,000 flight hours, and First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid, who is building his career as a commercial airline pilot. The aircraft itself is a Boeing 777-200ER. By 2014, the Boeing 777 had earned a reputation as one of the world's safest and most reliable long-haul aircraft. Nothing about this flight raises concern. The weather forecast is favorable. The aircraft has no reported mechanical problems. The crew passes all routine pre-flight checks. Everything appears completely normal. At approximately 12:41 a.m., clearance for departure is granted. The massive twin engines power up. The Boeing begins accelerating down the runway. Within seconds, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 lifts into the night sky. For everyone watching from the ground, it is just another departure. No one realizes they are witnessing the beginning of an aviation mystery that will remain unsolved for years to come. The first 20 minutes of Flight MH370 were completely routine. After departing Kuala Lumpur, the Boeing 777 climbed steadily toward its assigned cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. The skies over the South China Sea were calm, with little turbulence expected along the route to Beijing. Inside the cabin, the seatbelt sign was switched off. Flight attendants began preparing drinks and light refreshments for the overnight flight. Most passengers settled into their seats, many already asleep after a long day of travel. Others watched movies, listened to music, or quietly worked on laptops. From every outward appearance, it was an ordinary international flight. On the ground, air traffic controllers watched MH370 move smoothly along its planned route. The aircraft's position, altitude, speed, and direction all matched the flight plan. Nothing suggested that anything was wrong. At approximately 1:07 a.m., the aircraft sent what would become its final routine ACARS transmission. ACARS, short for Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, is a digital communication system that automatically sends operational information between an aircraft and airline ground stations. These messages can include engine performance, fuel data, and maintenance information. They help airlines monitor the health of an aircraft while it is in flight. This transmission appeared completely normal. No emergency alerts, no warning messages, no indication of a technical failure. But investigators later discovered that shortly after this report, ACARS stopped transmitting altogether. Whether it was intentionally disabled or stopped for another reason remains one of the central questions in the investigation. At the time, however, no one noticed. Missing a single scheduled transmission was not immediately alarming, and air traffic controllers had no reason to believe the flight was in danger. As MH370 approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace, control of the flight was about to be handed from Kuala Lumpur to Ho Chi Minh City, following standard international procedures. At 1:19 a.m., the cockpit acknowledged the handoff. The voice sounded calm. There was no urgency, no hesitation, no hint that anything unusual was happening inside the aircraft. The final confirmed radio transmission ended with a simple farewell. "Good night, Malaysian 370. To the controller, it was an ordinary exchange, one of hundreds heard during every shift. No one could have imagined that these would become the last verified words ever received from Flight MH370. Only a short time after that final transmission, something extraordinary happened. At approximately 1:21 a.m., the aircraft's transponder stopped transmitting. A transponder acts like an aircraft's electronic identification card. It continuously broadcasts the flight number, altitude, speed, and other information that allows air traffic controllers to identify aircraft on their radar screens. Without it, an airplane doesn't completely disappear from radar, but it loses its identity. Instead of seeing Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, controllers would only see an unidentified radar return, if they could see it at all. To air traffic controllers, this immediately stood out as unusual. Equipment failures can happen, but losing a transponder at the exact moment an aircraft changes airspace is extremely uncommon. Controllers in both Malaysia and Vietnam attempted to establish contact. There was no reply. For years, many people believed MH370 simply vanished where its transponder disappeared. The truth turned out to be far stranger. Military radar, which does not rely on aircraft transponders, continued tracking an unidentified aircraft. When investigators later reviewed the radar recordings, they made a startling discovery. The aircraft hadn't continued toward Beijing. Instead, it turned around. Not abruptly, not chaotically, but with what appeared to be a controlled, deliberate maneuver. the Boeing executed a wide turn and began flying back across the Malaysian peninsula. This was no random drift caused by bad weather. Someone, or something, had changed the aircraft's course. As MH370 crossed back over Malaysia, civilian radar systems could no longer positively identify it. To most of the world, the aircraft had already disappeared. Only military radar continued to follow the mysterious target. It passed near Penang Island before continuing northwest toward the Strait of Malacca, hundreds of kilometers away from its intended route to Beijing. By now, the situation had transformed from a communication problem into something far more alarming. A modern passenger jet carrying 239 people was flying in the wrong direction. Its communication systems were silent. Its identity had vanished from civilian radar, and no distress signal had ever been transmitted. What happened inside the cockpit during those crucial minutes remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in aviation history. While investigators would spend years analyzing radar data, satellite records, and recovered debris, the events that unfolded aboard the aircraft during this period have never been fully explained. The mystery was only beginning. For nearly an hour after Flight MH370 disappeared from civilian radar, confusion spread across multiple air traffic control centers. Vietnam expected the aircraft to check in. That call never came. Malaysia assumed the handoff had already taken place. Vietnam assumed the aircraft was still under Malaysian control. Those crucial minutes of uncertainty would later become one of the most criticized aspects of the entire incident. While controllers tried to determine where the aircraft had gone, something remarkable was still happening. MH370 was flying. Unlike civilian radar, military radar doesn't rely on an aircraft's transponder. Instead, it detects physical objects by bouncing radio waves off them. When Malaysian military officials later reviewed their recordings, they discovered the unidentified aircraft continued flying for almost another hour. The Boeing crossed the Malaysian peninsula. It passed near Penang Island. Then it continued northwest across the Strait of Malacca. Every kilometer it traveled carried it farther away from where search teams would initially begin looking. Finally, at approximately 2:22 a.m., the radar target disappeared over the Andaman Sea. From that moment onward, there were no more confirmed radar observations. If not for those military recordings, investigators might never have known the aircraft had reversed course. As the hours passed, concern rapidly turned into alarm. MH370 failed to arrive in Beijing on schedule. Repeated radio calls received no response. No emergency beacon had activated. No airport reported an unscheduled landing. No neighboring country reported seeing the aircraft. By the early morning, Malaysia Airlines officially announced that contact with flight MH370 had been lost. Families waiting inside Beijing Capital International Airport slowly realized something was terribly wrong. Arrival boards still displayed the flight number, but the aircraft never appeared. Within hours, television networks around the world interrupted their programming with breaking news. A modern passenger jet carrying 239 people had vanished. The initial search focused on the South China Sea near the aircraft's last known civilian radar position. Ships from Malaysia, Vietnam, China, Singapore, Thailand, and several other countries rushed toward the area. Military aircraft searched from above. Rescue vessels scanned the water below. Everyone expected to find floating wreckage within hours. Instead, there was nothing. No fuel slick, no life rafts, no debris field, no emergency locator signals. It was as though the aircraft had simply vanished. As each day passed without evidence, investigators faced an unsettling possibility. Perhaps they had been searching in the wrong place all along. While search crews combed the ocean, engineers at the British satellite communications company Inmarsat began examining something few people initially considered important. Every modern long-haul airliner constantly communicates with satellites, even when pilots aren't actively sending messages. These brief electronic exchanges are known as handshakes. Think of them as a device quietly telling the network, "I'm still here." Although these signals contain almost no flight information, they leave behind tiny pieces of data. Normally, they're ignored. But after MH370 disappeared, those routine signals became incredibly valuable. Investigators discovered something astonishing. Even after the aircraft vanished from radar, the satellite continued hearing from it. According to satellite records, MH370 didn't disappear immediately after losing radar contact. Instead, the aircraft continued responding to automatic satellite requests for almost 7 hours. No voice calls were answered, no text messages were transmitted, no emergency information was sent. Only a series of brief electronic acknowledgements, 7 in total. Each one confirmed a single fact: the aircraft was still powered, and it was still flying. This changed the entire investigation. Instead of searching a relatively small section of the South China Sea, investigators now realized MH370 could have traveled thousands of kilometers farther. But there was a problem. The satellite couldn't determine exactly where the aircraft was. It could only estimate its distance. Imagine standing in the center of a giant circle. You know someone is standing somewhere along the edge, but you have no idea which direction. That's exactly what investigators were facing. Each satellite handshake created a massive arc of possible locations. Combining all 7 arcs with calculations involving fuel consumption, aircraft performance, speed, and Earth's rotation gradually narrowed the possibilities. Eventually, only 2 realistic routes remained. One stretched north across Central Asia. The other extended deep into the southern Indian Ocean. One of them held the answer. The challenge was figuring out which one. And time was running out. By the second week of the investigation, the search had become a race against time. Every passing day reduced the chances of finding floating debris. Ocean currents were carrying anything on the surface farther away from the aircraft's final resting place. Meanwhile, a team of engineers and aviation specialists worked around the clock, analyzing the satellite data collected from flight MH370. Their conclusion would completely change the direction of the investigation. Using the timing of the aircraft's satellite handshakes, investigators calculated 2 possible flight paths. One extended north through parts of Southeast Asia and Central Asia. The other curved far into the southern Indian Ocean. At first, neither route could be ruled out. Authorities contacted governments across Asia, asking whether any unidentified aircraft had entered their airspace that night. Radar records were reviewed. Military logs were rechecked. Civil aviation agencies compared their data. Nothing supported the northern route. No radar station had tracked a Boeing 777 crossing those countries. No airport reported an unexpected landing. No satellite images showed an aircraft on land. One by one, the possibilities disappeared. Eventually, investigators concluded that the aircraft had most likely continued south, into one of the most remote stretches of ocean on Earth. It was a place where rough seas, extreme weather, and enormous depths made any search incredibly difficult. The investigation shifted thousands of kilometers southwest of Australia. This new search zone covered an isolated region of the southern Indian Ocean, an area so remote that reaching it by ship could take nearly a week. The environment itself became a major obstacle. Towering waves, powerful currents, frequent storms, and beneath the surface, an underwater landscape of deep trenches, mountains, and valleys stretching thousands of meters below sea level. Searching there wasn't like looking for a car in a parking lot. It was like searching for a single grain of sand across an entire desert. Still, dozens of aircraft and ships from multiple countries joined the operation. Day after day, crews scanned the horizon. Nothing. As April approached, another possibility emerged. Every commercial airliner carries flight recorders, commonly known as the black boxes. Attached to each recorder is an underwater locator beacon designed to emit an acoustic pulse for roughly 30 days after entering the water. If search vessels could detect those signals, they might finally locate the wreckage. Specialized ships equipped with sensitive listening equipment entered the search area. Then came an exciting announcement. Investigators detected several acoustic signals that appeared to match the expected frequency of a flight recorder beacon. Around the world, headlines suggested the mystery was finally about to be solved. Hope returned. Families believed answers were only days away. Autonomous underwater vehicles were deployed to scan the seabed near the detected signals. The search continued for weeks, but when the scans were completed, there was nothing. No fuselage, no engines, no flight recorders, no evidence that the acoustic signals had originated from flight MH370. Later investigations suggested the sounds may have come from unrelated equipment or natural sources beneath the ocean. Once again, the trail had gone cold. More than a year passed. Despite one of the largest search efforts in aviation history, investigators still had no confirmed wreckage. Then, on July 29, 2015, thousands of kilometers away from the official search zone, something unexpected happened. A beach cleaner walking along the shoreline of Réunion Island, east of Madagascar, noticed a large, weathered aircraft component covered in barnacles. At first glance, it looked like ordinary marine debris, but aviation experts quickly recognized it as a flaperon, a movable section attached to the trailing edge of an aircraft wing. Serial numbers and manufacturing markings were carefully examined. The conclusion was unmistakable. It belonged to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. For the first time since the aircraft disappeared, investigators had physical evidence confirming that the Boeing 777 had ended up in the Indian Ocean. The mystery had entered a new phase. Following the discovery on Réunion Island, coastlines across eastern Africa and nearby islands were searched more carefully. Over the following months and years, additional pieces of aircraft debris washed ashore in places including Mozambique, Tanzania, Madagascar, Mauritius, and South Africa. Some fragments could only be classified as possibly related. Others were considered highly likely. A small number were conclusively identified as parts of MH370. These included sections of the wing, pieces of the engine cowling, and other structural components. Experts carefully studied marine growth, impact damage, and ocean current models. Together, the debris strengthened the conclusion that the aircraft had entered the southern Indian Ocean. However, none of the recovered pieces answered the most important questions. Why did the aircraft leave its planned route? Who or what was controlling it? And where was the main wreckage? Without the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, investigators still lacked the evidence needed to explain the final hours of flight MH370. The ocean had revealed a few pieces of the puzzle, but it continued to guard its greatest secret. With no cockpit voice recorder, no flight data recorder, and no main wreckage, investigators were left with one of the most difficult challenges imaginable. They had to reconstruct the final hours of Flight MH370 using radar records, satellite data, recovered debris, and thousands of pages of technical analysis. Over the years, dozens of theories have emerged. Some are supported by evidence. Others rely almost entirely on speculation. Let's examine the leading possibilities. Theory 1. Deliberate human action. This remains one of the most discussed and controversial theories. Investigators concluded that several events during the flight were unlikely to have happened accidentally. The aircraft changed direction through what appeared to be controlled turns. Its transponder stopped transmitting. Its satellite communications system experienced an interruption before reconnecting. Together, these events suggest that someone with knowledge of the aircraft may have manually altered its systems and flight path. However, determining who that person was is another matter entirely. Much public attention focused on Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, an experienced pilot with more than 18,000 hours of flight time. During the investigation, authorities examined his background, finances, digital devices, and home flight simulator. Investigators also reviewed First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid's background. Despite extensive examinations, the official investigation did not identify a clear motive for either pilot to deliberately crash the aircraft. A previously reported flight simulator route found on the captain's computer attracted significant media attention. While investigators confirmed simulator data existed, they stated it did not conclusively prove that it was connected to the disappearance of MH370. In other words, the evidence raised questions, but it did not provide definitive answers. Theory 2. A mechanical failure. Another possibility is that a catastrophic technical failure occurred during the flight. Some investigators considered whether an electrical malfunction or onboard fire might have disabled communication systems and forced the crew to turn back toward Malaysia. Commercial aircraft have experienced electrical fires before. In some cases, smoke has damaged critical avionics and forced emergency landings. Supporters of this theory point to the aircraft's initial turn back toward Malaysia, suggesting the pilots may have been attempting to reach the nearest suitable airport. However, there is a major problem. The aircraft continued flying for several more hours. If the crew had been attempting an emergency landing, investigators would expect some form of distress call or emergency communication. None was ever received. Theory 3. Loss of cabin pressure. Another widely discussed explanation involves cabin depressurization. If the aircraft suddenly lost cabin pressure and the crew failed to descend quickly enough, oxygen levels inside the cabin could have fallen to dangerous levels. Passengers would gradually lose consciousness. Eventually, the pilots could also become incapacitated. The aircraft might then continue flying on autopilot until it exhausted its fuel. This type of event has happened before in aviation history. However, this theory does not fully explain the aircraft's early course changes. Analysis of the radar data indicates that at least the initial turn away from the planned route was likely performed manually rather than automatically. Someone, or at the very least, some deliberate input, appears to have changed the aircraft's heading. Naturally, investigators also considered the possibility of a hijacking. Early media reports focused on 2 passengers traveling with stolen passports. Given the timing, concerns about terrorism quickly spread around the world. But investigators eventually determined the 2 men were migrants seeking asylum. No evidence linked them to terrorist organizations. No group claimed responsibility for the disappearance. No ransom demand was ever made. And no credible intelligence connected the flight to a terrorist plot. While investigators never completely ruled out every possible hijacking scenario, they found no convincing evidence to support one. Whenever information is limited, speculation often fills the gaps. Over the years, MH370 has inspired countless conspiracy theories. Some claim the aircraft was secretly landed at a military base. Others suggest it was remotely controlled. Still others argue it was shot down and covered up by governments. Despite their popularity online, none of these claims have been supported by verifiable evidence. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And so far, that proof has never emerged. After years of investigation, one conclusion is widely accepted among aviation authorities. Flight MH370 almost certainly continued flying for several hours after disappearing from civilian radar. It most likely ended its journey somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. Recovered debris, satellite analysis, and drift modeling all point in that direction. Beyond that, the picture becomes much less certain. Investigators believe the aircraft's communications systems and flight path were likely altered through manual action, but they have not determined who was responsible, why it happened, or exactly where the aircraft came to rest. The official reports stop short of assigning blame. And without the main wreckage, they cannot provide a definitive explanation. More than a decade later, MH370 remains one of aviation's greatest unanswered questions. The evidence tells part of the story. The missing aircraft may hold the rest. More than a decade has passed since Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished from radar. Technology has advanced. Satellite analysis has improved. Ocean current models have become more accurate. And yet, the greatest piece of evidence is still missing: the airplane itself. Without the main wreckage, investigators cannot recover the cockpit voice recorder or the flight data recorder, the two devices most likely to reveal exactly what happened during the flight's final hours. For years, search teams explored vast areas of the southern Indian Ocean. Together, governments and private organizations mapped more than 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor, using some of the most advanced underwater technology ever deployed. The effort became one of the largest and most expensive search operations in aviation history. Despite that enormous undertaking, the aircraft remained hidden. Marine robotics companies, independent researchers, and aviation experts have continued studying the available evidence. Among them is Ocean Infinity, a company specializing in deep-sea exploration using autonomous underwater vehicles capable of scanning areas far beyond the reach of traditional divers. The hope is simple. If the search area can be narrowed even further, modern technology may finally locate the wreckage resting thousands of meters beneath the ocean's surface. For the families of the 239 people on board, this is something far more personal than an unsolved mystery. Behind every seat number was a life: parents, children, friends, students, pilots, cabin crew, people who expected to arrive safely at their destination. Every new search is driven by the hope of providing long-awaited answers to those who have spent years living with uncertainty. So, what really happened to Flight MH370? Today, investigators agree. The aircraft almost certainly deviated from its planned route. It remained airborne for hours, and the available evidence strongly indicates it ended its journey in the southern Indian Ocean. Beyond those conclusions, much of the story remains unknown. Until the wreckage is found, many of the answers will remain beyond our reach. Perhaps one day, a new expedition will locate the aircraft. Perhaps the flight recorders will finally reveal the final conversations inside the cockpit. Or, perhaps MH370 will continue to stand as one of the few mysteries modern technology has been unable to solve. For now, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 remains a reminder that even in an age of satellites, global communications, and advanced aviation systems, some mysteries still endure. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy in-depth documentaries covering unsolved mysteries, aviation disasters, historical events, and fascinating true stories, make sure to subscribe to Infoverse and turn on notifications so you never miss a new investigation. Every week, we dive deep into the world's most compelling mysteries, separating verified facts from speculation and bringing complex stories to life through cinematic storytelling. If you have a mystery you'd like us to cover next, let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious and welcome to Infoverse.